Okay, so today we're going to do a lab exercise called Time, Place, and Mood. And you're each going to be divided into 4 groups. Each group is going to have a specific time, place, and mood that you need to convey through lighting details. So talk quietly so that the other groups don't know what your scene is, and then at the end, we will look at each scene one by one, and depending on how you've selected the lighting details, we, the audience, should be able to guess what the time of day is, what the scene is, and what the mood is. Okay, so you now have your assignments. So why don't you go ahead and go into your various areas, discuss with your group what the details are, and then as soon as you're ready to put gels in the lights, we'll turn off the overhead lights and turn on the stage lights. Yeah. I'll let one of you position yourselves. All right, so, if you feel strongly about this color, go ahead and leave it, and it'll be a point of discussion when everybody looks at it.
Oh, it's all on me.
So just a couple more minutes, everybody should finish up with your last gels and write down your intensities. Okay, and actors, go when ready. Start. End of scene. Yay! Okay, so everybody who's not in this group, let's start asking questions. Is this interior or exterior? What do you think? Based on the sources of light that you're seeing, we'll identify them in a minute, but if you had a gut reaction, would it be nighttime or daytime?
Nighttime.
Okay, and interior or exterior? Exterior. Okay, and what mood do you think is being conveyed? Sinister? Eerie? Mysterious? Okay. All right, so now tell me what the sources are. Like we have 2 down lights and a warm color. What do you think those represent? Street lights. And what about this front diagonal coming in? Moonlight. All right, and what about the red light upstage? Dramatic flare?
Yeah, just like an entrance.
Okay, but we still need to base it, for the purpose of these scenes, we're basing it in realistic sources of light. So what source do you think would be that color?
That color? But from the angle and like the direction, it seems more like some light spilling out from an open doorway.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes, because we have a hard cutoff, so it looks like it's light coming out. So then, do you know any light source that's that color? And that directional? All right, let's hold that thought and let Amy and Michelle tell us what your scene was and why you chose that particular color.
Our scene was a woman walking outside of in an exterior setting, and then a man coming through an open door and following her down the street.
So we had 2 streetlights, as you guys had predicted or told. So those naturally we used down lights to show that they were street lamps coming down the street. And the moonlight, we made a slightly luminescent tone, but we tried to get a warmer blue because it was set in the summer. So it was really a fine line to determine whether it was nighttime, but also summer. And then we initially had just a regular white-ish light coming from behind the door to make it more realistic as like a storefront or something else, but then we decided maybe a restaurant setting would have a reddish light, and then that would just...
A bar.
Yeah, a bar. And it would be convenient to set not only the sinister mood, but maybe a guy coming from the bar might actually be more sinister. This guy was actually sort of appropriate.
Mm-hmm. Could one of you stand, maybe Amy, you stand in the street light, and Michelle, first you stand in what would be the moonlight, just so we can see the contrast of sources. So their mood was sinister, so I think everybody got the right details. But now that you see, because Amy, when you were first walking, or actually it was Sophie who walked for you, you weren't in either of these light sources. You were kind of upstage a bit. So it actually, that produces a lot of interesting shadow with the face as well. And if we were just talking about, and we can see the ambient moonlight, which very nicely blends in with your other sources. And now take a step into the red light. Okay, so this is equally kind of creepy with the shadow, and especially the looming shadow. What may be a little confusing, and actually you could have probably walked through the streetlights and then you come out and then we would have really solidified the kind of shadow that's happening. But, you know, if you had like a restaurant or a bar with neon, there will be some reflected light coming out from it. But this is so strong and directional, it's almost, and that's where I think it gets a little bit confusing because it's directional as if it were another kind of source like an incandescent, you know, hallway light, or it could even be considered another moonlight. If it were a different color, it could actually be light coming down an alley or something. So I think that the shadow and the directionality of it works well. If you wanted it to be like an incandescent source, you can actually make your street lights be more like orange, high pressure sodium. And then that could be an incandescent and they still would be contrasted with your night source. Or you could decide to go a different route with more directional moonlight or another source. But I think in terms of the shadow and the contrast within the scene, everybody got those details right away. Okay, good, well done. Okay, let's move on to group 2. What time of day is this? Night?
It feels like that.
Okay, it feels like night. Is it interior or exterior?
Interior.
Interior. Okay, and what kind of a mood do you get? Lonely.
Peaceful.
Peaceful. What else? If there's disagreement, that's fine. We can talk about how sometimes it's just finessing the details a little bit, either intensity or color, that can make a difference. So we've got 2 different kinds of moods. And what do you think these sources are? So we have 2 sources in the room. We have the low warm source, and what does that represent? Like a fireplace. Okay, and then what about the cool source that's coming in? Okay, moonlight. And anybody think differently?
Almost pre-dawn. Like that, like there's like that kind of right when the sun like hasn't come up yet, and the sky's like almost that color blue.
Why don't you guys tell us what your scene was?
So it was a person sitting at the rocking chair and really enjoying, so the blue was really bright and
Sunrise.
and purple was the fireplace.
Right. Now, I think why people gravitated to night rather than dawn is because the color is reading blue and cooler, and we tend to think about that. Now, I think probably why you were choosing is because your season, I had given you winter, and you were maybe thinking of light, you know, coldness and light reflecting off of snow. But since we tend to equate this cooler color with moonlight, that's where people gravitated towards nighttime, plus the intimacy of the scene. So what do you think, if you were going to make a change with the color of this source to universally suggest dawn before we get into full, you know, daylight, what color range do you think you might go to?
This is slightly more amber blue, I think.
Let me pull,
It's a very green blue.
Yeah.
And it even something with more maroon, like a red based blue.
Yeah, because we just need some warmth.
I'm gonna throw a couple of gems.
A lilac.
A lilac could be nice.
It's like lilac.
Cause like sunset or sunrise, maybe slightly like,
It's got the pink.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
warmth. It's got the warmth of the
yeah.
sunrise.
Yeah.
Because those exist.
Yes.
There was some nice like,
Well,
Pinky,
look at
pinky
the
light.
pink he's working on his program. He's
Alright, just to introduce a different color palette. Let's look and see if this makes it better or worse. Yes, no, maybe?
It's better.
it's better, but it's almost too intense.
Well, we can adjust intensity.
Yeah, I think another problem was the intensity. Because the sun isn't.
What I'm showing you is a range of lavender, sort of that, it's still cool. It hasn't quite gone into the amber yellow range yet, but it's coming out of nighttime and it's not as cool as what you might expect from moonlight. So perhaps something like this, one of these colors or something in this range might blend well with that and give you another sense of it. One thing that you did deal with well is the fact that you went with a low angle of light to create that shadow. And if you wanted to, you could actually try to actually shutter a window shape. If you wanted to do that, just to rotate the shutters a bit if you wanted to do that at the top and the bottom, but not absolutely necessary. It could actually even just be a soft look that permeates the room so you don't see the hard edges on the walls, if you wanted to do that as well. Okay, good job, you guys. All right, we're gonna move on to group number 3. So what time of day is this?
Sunset.
Sunset?
It feels like sunset.
Okay, any other differing point of view? Okay, is it exterior or interior?
Exterior.
Okay, and tell me about the sources of light.
It feels like a street light as well as the sun.
That's not supposed to be on, sorry. That was left over as a word light.
No.
But it's good that you were so observant and you noticed that.
Well, the angle is showing the sunset or something. I think the other ones are just added to mix the colors.
Okay, so if you were gonna choose the key source of light in the scene, being the brightest source, would it be this low over there? Okay. And then the other sources are just filling in as if it were ambient light reflected around. And what's the mood? Calm. What were you saying, Nikki? Love, romantic. Okay. It's a very soft lighting. I mean, the details were it's a couple sitting outside, it's sunset, and it's a romantic mood. And why we get more of a romantic or a peaceful mood rather than one that's tension is because the quality of lighting coming in is very soft and diffuse. The colors are nicely balanced and mixed with, definitely the warm sources and the fill sources coming in. If we wanted to say that this couple was breaking up and having a huge argument, what detail might you change in the lighting to support that mood? What would you introduce?
Contrast.
Yeah, you would introduce contrast, perhaps more shadow. So we could maybe make this more directional. And can you guys take out your diagonal front and your high side light? It's moodier, darker, and we would need to maybe have this low lipo come around on this side to add the color. But now see how they've got more shadow and there's more tension in the scene. So you could play around with that pending the the mood that you wanted to work with. And if we added this warm light from the opposite direction, you get the color, but perhaps to deal with more shadows. So that might work where you're still getting a sense of sunset, but now see how much high contrast there is from before when it was very soft lighting filled in? Okay, excellent, great job, guys. And then let's look at the last group. All right, so what time of day do you think this is?
Midday.
Midday? All right, we'll come.
Yeah, just daytime.
Well, daytime, all right, we'll come back to that. What, is it interior or exterior?
And it's interior.
Okay, so I hear one interior, anybody go for exterior?
Maybe exterior.
All right, we'll come back to the details of the angles. And what mood do you think it is? Tense?
It's not half.
Yeah.
Even though
All right, so there's a lot of shadow, so
There's
it,
a lot of shadow.
so it makes it more of a negative kind of mood rather than a positive mood, right? So we could, it's more perhaps introverted or alone, or we might think some of those adjectives. Okay, so tell us what your scene was.
A lonely man on an autumn afternoon in a park mourning the loss of his wife.
Okay, and I think, did I put in there that he was under a tree?
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that might be giving different clues is that if it were exterior, daytime, and why some people maybe felt it was interior, because it was very closed in, whereas if it were exterior, we would expect the light to be bouncing all over the place and for the room to be filled with light as it would be in an exterior. But because of the mood, I placed the character under a tree to give you some ability to provide shadow. So it needs to feel like light is coming through leaves or something. And if we had had a template pattern for you to use, that would have been a little more obvious. So I think we react to the mood strongly because of the contrast in the shadow. And then so that's really good because that was the story you were trying to tell. So now we need to finesse making it feel that it's exterior, and we could probably leave the shadow on him to reinforce the mood under the tree, and maybe just add a few other surround sources to just open up the space more so it felt definitely like it was daytime exterior, and go with that. Okay guys, really good job. So I think, what's important is to always have a reason behind the choices that you make, and to think about what it is that you're trying to convey, and explore the direction of the light, the color of the light, and the intensity of the light, and how it then is going to be viewed by whether it's the public in a building that you've designed or whether it's a story in the theater that you're creating. So that all becomes really important. Okay, good work, last group. Yay! Okay, great. I'm going to turn on work lights now.